Yes. If you are online, go ahead and open up the notes document. It's in the announcement for today on Canvas. And it's also, I will put it in the chat right now. Yes. All right. Let me share the link in the chat with people. You can see the EQs on the board. The topic is the Roaring 20s or the 1920s. Okay, so in the chat, if you will, go ahead and open up this doc if you're online. And you can make a copy. Paper. All right, give me 1 sec to get people set up in here and then we'll get rolling. Paper, yeah. Pencil, paper. You need to sharpen it? That doesn't work. Hold on. Yeah, they need to just like upgrade this in general. That's just not going on. All right. Anyone need any more time on getting the notes stock up? So the EQ for today is on the announcement and it's also on the board and it's about to be in the chat. Yes, Claude, I can send it 1 second. The EQ is going to be what were the key aspects of the 1920s in America? What were the key aspects of the 1920s in America? So take a minute, get that on your paper, and then we will get rolling here in about 1 minute. What were the key aspects of the 1920s? Can you see from back there? I can put it on the slides too, 1 second. What were the key aspects of the 1920s in America? What were the key aspects of the 1920s in America? There we go. All right. Does anyone else need anything before we get started? I know, right? It's a new thing. Okay, what are the key aspects of the 1920s in America? So we've started talking about this already. Some of this is going to be recap, some of it's going to be new. What I'm going to do is try to go quickly through the things we've already talked about and then spend a little bit more time on the stuff that is new today. And then hopefully you guys will get to put some of the story together as we go. All right, so the first piece of the story with the 1920s is Prohibition. Who remembers Prohibition? Or what is Prohibition all about? Good. No alcohol. That's a pretty simple way to say it. Yeah, Prohibition says there's no alcohol allowed to be sold, to be bought, to be transferred, like moved from one place to another in this country. How did this go over? Did it go well? Did it work out? It was okay, but yep, they did. Because they're trying to keep people from becoming alcoholic. They're trying to deal with like the effects of alcoholism. But the way they decided to deal with that was just to say none of it should exist. So that's not a really smart way to deal with it because what happened as a result? Well, there's a war going on at the same time, that's true. but people still party, people still drink. They just do it kind of illegally and secretly. So there's these bars that are called speakeasies that open, because like once you start to drink, you start to talk more easily. So speakeasies, and they're down in these basements that are kind of hidden in parts of the city that you gotta know about. You gotta know someone who knows where they are. And if you go into these bars and you say the right code word or whatever, you'll get led into a secret door and you'll go downstairs and there will be a bar and people will be drinking. So that like alcohol is still very much being sold. People are still drinking. In fact, I would say people are drinking even more during this time because they're like, screw you, you're gonna tell me not to drink. I'm gonna go drink more than I normally would. So that is prohibition. Does not work out, but that is a key idea. If you don't know what prohibition was, go ahead and put that on your notes. Prohibition equals no alcohol. What? This is a clip from back then. And this would be like in a speakeasy. This one is new. That's not real, but this one is. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Prohibition. Prohibiti. Okay. So we got that going on. Then we got what Meada is talking about, which is war. We were also in World War I, right before the 20s. And how did World War I work out for America? Who remembers? Yeah, we won, and it was a huge deal because we became really powerful after World War I. So now we have all of this new power, and we have all of these happy people who are excited to be done with war. They came home and they were victorious. They're ready to celebrate. So this is all good things happening in this country. Yep, go ahead. So the second thing to make sure you have down, Darwin, make sure you're muted, please. The second thing to have down is just that America won World War I.
Everyone knows that
You're the winners in World War I.
I don't even know where you got Paris from, but maybe he was thinking about that.
So America wins in World War I. Okay, as a result, after people win in the war, we're really excited to come home and start spending money. People are ready to spend, especially because all these new inventions are happening that people get excited about, like washing machines. Y'all, before this, people had to hand wash their clothes every time. Irons, vacuum cleaners, cars, things that you guys might not get excited about, but it changes people's lives and it makes things better for people, especially women, who a lot of the times were at home during this time before they were able to necessarily join the economy and start working. So new inventions, people are ready to spend their money. This is called an economic boom. Like a boom is so I'm gonna, yeah, I know. What was the first time? What should I have for this? What would you put? What's the key idea on the slide? Exactly. New inventions are being made and people want to spend their money and buy them. This is like when people come out with like the fancy new Teslas and everyone wants to buy them. New inventions. People want to spend money. So for people on Zoom, we were just writing down that the key idea here is that there's all these new inventions and that makes people want to go spend money. Also, Europe is where this war was fought. And so Europe is like destroyed after World War I. And that means the United States can take advantage of that. And they can go make a lot of money in Europe because people there need stuff from America. Because they're not making washing machines and irons over in Europe. All right, and this is where we get this new idea called credit. Raise your hand if you've heard of credit before. How or what do we know about credit? Glad you're ready. Perfect. Good. Yep. You lady? So yeah, there's things like a credit score, which help you when you want to like buy a house or rent an apartment or get a car. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so this is a new idea from back then. They decided, oh, we can have this thing where if you know that you have, I don't know, $50 in your bank account today, but you're about to get paid tomorrow and have $1,000 in your bank account tomorrow, we will give you this card or this piece of paper that says you can go spend more money than you have today. You can spend more than the $50 in your bank account if you're going to pay us back later, plus a little bit more. That's how credit card companies make money today. So the idea is you get this piece, you get a credit card, and it has up to, say, $10,000 on it. You can spend that $10,000 in a second if you wanted to. You can go to wherever and buy as much as you want. But the idea is you now owe that $10,000 plus an extra $1,000 plus like an extra interest that you make. And so it's this way of making sure that you pay them back and pay them a little bit more. Yeah. Yeah. So the idea is if you're someone who has borrowed a lot of money and you haven't necessarily paid back what you borrowed, then that affects your credit score and your credit score starts to go down. And that's when it gets harder to buy a house, rent a car, buy a car, do the things that cost a lot of money that you need a credit to do. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's kind of messed up in the way it works today. But back then, people thought this was magical because it basically sounded like free money. It sounded like, oh, I can go spend more than I have and nothing's going to happen right now. But the problem is what happens later on. You have to pay it back. It catches up to you and you go in debt. Exactly. So this is just like to be a smart human later in your life when you get money and you start to get paid. One thing that I learned in school that I really value learning is do not buy more on credit than you have in your bank account because it's a dangerous game where you can get into a lot of debt and it does mess up your life when you're trying to like get a house or get an apartment or something later on. Anyway, at this time people start buying notes on this section. So credit is created and people start buying now, paying later. I now pay later. Let me see, put that on the board. So credit is created. People buy now and later. Do you think this is going to be good for our country? No. Why am I for our country? Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know if Martha L. only created credit, but at this time it was created by people. Yeah, I'm not sure. We could look it up though. But yeah, people go into debt a lot and they think it's not a big deal. A ghost at the door, I don't know. Sometimes that happens. This shows you though what happened here. So the blue represents how much money people actually had. The red represents how much people took out in credit or how much debt people got. So what do you notice? People are spending so much more money than they have. And that's where we get into the situation that causes the Great Depression. Because people are spending, but they don't have the money to actually pay. Yeah, that's part of the reason for it. So yeah, this is going to come back and haunt people later on. It is. It comes back and haunts you. Yep. Questions about credit or about this? Because it seemed really great. Everyone's spending, getting fancy things, living a fancy life. Yeah. There you go. So also at this time, women are getting a lot more opportunities, both like in terms of the jobs that they're having and can work at. They also recently got the right to do what, if you remember? Vote, perfect. And now they're also getting more chance to dress how they want, act how they want, even if it's something that isn't traditionally like feminine and ladylike and nice. Yeah, so for a while, women had kind of gone along with it, not necessarily gone along with it, but at this time they really start saying, screw you, we're gonna do what we want. And one of the ways that they do this is by this like flapper trend, which you're going to see. These are women who drank, who smoked, who danced, who wore things that at other times people would say women shouldn't be wearing. And so you can see that they're kind of protesting the roles, like the gender roles that they had before this. Let me share, I'm going to show you the video. Hold on. Because this also shows you like the speakeasies, the bars that people would go to that were secret. Here we go.
The quest for a stiff drink gives birth to the speakeasy, password protected entertainment with a shot of freedom. For women who just won the right to vote in
So yeah, this would be like a bar, speakeasy.
1920, these underground bars inspire a new, uninhibited lifestyle. One that will shock the more conservative sectors of society. As the writer Dorothy Parker puts it, she's not what Grandma used to be. The Flapper, a hit movie, gives a name to this brash new generation of women.
Jazz in the background.
Flappers cast aside much of what society considers proper behavior. They wear short dresses, bobbed hair, and lavish makeup, celebrating a newfound sexuality.
So like,
The
I
cosmetic
can't tell you, you don't realize this, but like even just these dresses back then were so like scandalous for the time because they came up above the ankles. Like before this, it was like, yeah, ankles. I know, that's what I mean. You gotta realize what this time this is. They would roll over in their graves. Yeah, I know. But they might have loved it. Women might have said like, good for women, like later on in the future. But yeah. Yeah, that's what they wore. That's what they were wearing all the way down their ankles. Yep. 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 In the summer, yes. Yeah, I know. So this is like freedom in a new way.
The cosmetics industry booms as more
Makeup,
women adopt the flapper style. Cigarettes become a symbol of liberation, and women embrace the image. The jazz age is in full swing. Most Americans have never had it so good.
All right, so that's like the flapper, the girls. So on your notes, what's the key idea here? What should we write? Yeah, normal gender roles. Yeah, good. So flappers were women who rebelled. So flappers were women who rebelled against the gender roles. Yeah, social norms. Good. So women who rebelled against gender norms or gender roles / social norms. So not that like, it's not like this is a time of liberation for everybody. For example, like people who identified as LGBTQ not getting necessarily representation or rights at this time. But you can see how things are beginning where society becomes a little more accepting of other people. All right, sweet. So we got women here, the flappers, some more pictures. Again, the things that they wore were so different from before. Also, other groups of people are gaining more rights, like Native Americans. Before this time, Native Americans did not have citizenship. They were not considered American citizens. And I want you to think about that for a second. Exactly. Whose land are we on? Native American land. Yeah. So that's kind of extremely effed up in my mind that they didn't have citizenship. Exactly. And Native Americans fought for the United States in World War I. They literally risked their lives to fight for this country. And they came back home and did not have citizenship. Think about that. Yeah. And same for Black Americans who were fighting in World War I. So many, like, Black Americans fought in that war. They came home. A lot of them were not able to have the right to vote necessarily, or they were discriminated against. There were laws that were not fair. So, like, our country does not treat people well, given how well people treat America. Like, if you're willing to risk your life for this country, I don't know. I just think it's messed up. Anyway, Native Americans get citizenship right here. So we're kind of inching our way toward progress, where the government decides, okay, we are going to give these people the right to be American citizens. Exactly, exactly. It should be theirs. All of this should be theirs. Yep, you're right. You're right. You're right. I'm so glad you guys We'll talk about that if we have time. Okay, so what's the key idea here? I just want to make sure we understand. Yeah, although they do get it after World War I. Yeah, so they're given citizenship. Could not vote for a president. Yeah. Yeah. I know. So they're given citizenship. Yeah, there's the Lumbee are still asking for recognition from the federal government today, literally today. Like, they're still asking Joe Biden to give them recognition, to recognize them as a tribe. Yeah, he's still up in the White House. It's the election. Yeah. Okay, at the same time, this is going to be a problem. We got something called happening. Who remembers this word from the vocab sheet? This word was on the vocab sheet. Yeah, it was the first one on there. So at the same time, you know it? Go. Good. Perfect. You're right. Exactly. So in Russia, communism took over there. People started to become communists. Communist is a really different way of running a country because no one owns stuff for yourself there. Instead of owning a home or owning a car or making money independently, under communism, the government gives people everything. So there's no rich people, there's no poor people, there's also no business. So it's really, really different than here. And that was in Russia. So they would give you a house, but it wasn't your house. It was technically the government's house. You're just living in it. It's like for rent. But everyone, the idea is no one owns anything. Everyone shares everything. And the government decides how to share it up. Is it still a thing? It's still a thing in some countries. China today is a communist country that is becoming more like capitalist, more businessy. But there are countries like North Korea that is communist. There are countries in other parts, so there are still communist countries. However, Russia, the Soviet Union is like the extreme example of this because they kind of take it the furthest. They're kind of the most extreme. And they are continuing to spread around the world, like they're taking over other places. And so there's this idea that in America, communism is gonna take over. Like the Russians are gonna come to America and spread their communist ideas and affect people's minds. And then America is gonna become communist. People were terrified of that, and that was called the Red Scare because Russia was red, their flag was red. Okay, so at this time, that's another thing that's kind of happening on the back burner and it's going to become more of a problem later on. But that's just something I want you to keep in the back of your minds. The Americans are scared of Russia. They're scared of communism. Okay. Questions about the yeah. So they're scared that this thing, communism, is going to come take over in America. And that would just mean that like people don't have money anymore. People don't have their home anymore. They can't run a business anymore. The government would run everything and just give people the same amount of everything. It's, yeah. Yes. But like, yeah, it's just different. It's just different. There's no rich people. There's no poor people. Everyone has the same amount of stuff. It sounds good. You'll see it doesn't work in Russia. It did not work well for them, but yeah, it's a good idea. And today there's different ideas about how you could do something that's kind of like this, but without going so extreme as to like take away everyone's business and everything like that. So anyway, that's the Red Scare. All right. Also at this time, Americans start to become afraid of people because of the Red Scare, because of this. People are afraid of communism coming here, and so they're afraid of other people coming here. And what that means is that if you look on this chart here, what happens to immigration in the 1920s? This is 1920. Well, this is the 20s, but here are the 30s. What happens during this time period? Like down right in here. Yeah, they didn't let immigrants in. Exactly. So all of these people who are coming to America that we learned about before, the borders start to close, and especially certain groups of people, especially Chinese immigrants who are coming from China. There is literally a law that said if you come from China, you're not allowed. So it's racist. Because Americans are afraid of Chinese people for racist reasons. Yeah, no, I mean, this is stupid. I hope that what you see is so many things about American history are frustrating. It's frustrating. And it's still like that sometimes. Mhm. 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 Back then in 1920, Franklin, oh, Joe Biden, Joe Biden. What do you mean? Yeah. We don't have time to go into everything Joe Biden has done since he was elected, but he's still president. Yep. Yep. All right. I want to get through the rest of this quickly, and we have covered some of this. The last thing, or one of the last things for today, I do want you to have Great Migration written on your paper. This is a big idea because it really changes this country. Who remembers the Great Migration from the vocab sheet? I know it's been a minute. Yeah. Yep. So, yep. Right. Good. So if you think about it, when slavery was a what was happening where? Where is slavery happening? Where in the country? The North or the South? The South. The South was the slave states, like North Carolina here. Yeah. So this is where the largest percentage of African Americans lived in this country for a long time. Exactly, because of slavery down here. Wait, say that again. Yes, Vance, exactly. Yes, yes. I'm glad that you heard about that. Yeah. So after this time, after slavery is illegal and after Jim Crow laws start to get passed, think about the Wilmington riot. Oh yeah, bathroom. So if you don't have written down what millions of African Americans are moving to other parts of the country, especially big cities up north. And then we are going to pause really quick for the restroom. recording. Okay, so the other thing that's happening at this time is that because alcohol is illegal, there become these people who are in the business of trading alcohol, manufacturing alcohol on like a really big scale. And they create these like organized crime situations, like the mafia, if you've heard of the mafia or seen the mafia. Yeah, so these are like kind of gangsters before gangsters as you think of them were a thing. These are like kind of dapper dons, as they're called. They dress in suits, they have the big cigarettes. Yeah, a lot of them are living up north. Well, but yeah, they don't think of themselves as like gentlemen or like as sophisticated. I don't know if they actually are, but that's how they think of themselves. Because they're criminals. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so Al Capone, we're gonna watch a video on. But these are also guys who are trading alcohol. That's how they get their money. They're called bootleggers. Bootleggers is a word for people who are illegally trading alcohol. So the most famous is Al Capone. And yeah, some of you guys might know about this dude, but we're just gonna play this clip really quick.
Going into the 1920s, many people believed banning alcohol would make America more peaceful. They were wrong. Violent murders, widespread corruption, and the dawn of organized crime defined the decade and beyond. In the years leading up to the 1920s, anti-alcohol activists such as Carrie Nation had been hard at work building a case against the demon drink. And they had some legitimate arguments. Prohibitionist women advocated for temperance as a means of combating their abusive, alcoholic husbands. Industrialists got behind the movement because they thought alcohol was limiting the potential output of their average worker. But temperance was also used by racist organizations as an outlet for their xenophobic views against the millions of European immigrants coming to the United States. The Germans and Irish in particular were scorned for their alleged drunkenness. Whatever their reasons, 46 states ultimately ratified the 18th Amendment, with only Connecticut and Rhode Island dissenting. Prohibition officially took effect at the very start of the decade, enforced by the language of the Volstead Act, named for House Judiciary Chairman Andrew Volstead. Within a year, Americans' alcohol consumption had already dropped to historic lows, but the drop was temporary. Americans didn't stop drinking. The 18th Amendment allowed for some loopholes: fermenting grapes at home, prescriptions from doctors, and religious exemptions. A lot of
people got a prescription from a doctor that they could drink. That's just funny to me. That's what they do for weed, but weed has, like, cannabis has actual medical benefits. Alcohol does not have medical benefits.
Found God. But the eradication of a corporate structure for alcohol production and distribution left a huge opportunity for a large-scale, organized, and insanely profitable black market. Existing small-time street gangs took advantage, quickly evolving into vast, bootlegging criminal enterprises. They employed everyone from warehouse workers to truck drivers to accountants. Gang leaders would bribe politicians, cops, even the prohibition agents themselves, nicknamed prohies, to ensure their businesses ran smoothly. Some relied on rum running, illegally importing liquor from other countries and storing it in warehouses across the U.S. Sometimes they would simply distill liquor in private homes. Other gangsters bought abandoned breweries and operated them in secret. They worked in the shadows, but one part of the business was very public: the violence. Gangs fought for territory in the streets of major U.S. cities. Chicago was especially violent. 729 people were killed by gangs in Cook County alone during Prohibition. The most famous of these incidents was the St. Valentine's Day Massacre in 1929. Men working for Al Capone, dressed as policemen, gunned down 7 rival members of Bugs Moran's gang against the wall of a parking garage. No one was ever charged for the crime. Realizing cooperation could lead to greater profits, many gangs agreed to treaties that allowed them to operate peacefully in their respective territories. Johnny Torrio attempted to organize the gangs in Chicago, with Al Capone as his right-hand man. When Torrio retired to Italy and handed the reins to his protege, Capone inherited a business pulling in more than $1 billion a year in today's terms. Charles Lucky Luciano organized the Italian and Jewish gangs in New York under Joe the Boss Masseria, before Luciano had Masseria killed in 1931 and had his successor Salvatore Maranzano killed the same year. Luciano went on to found the Commission, a national crime syndicate composed of New York's 5 mafia families and the
So
control.
it's always run like a business. You can see like they're very organized, like organized crime. They're organized about the way that they're. These are the mafia. Yeah. 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 Jennifer Montana. Yeah. Where's that you?
Controlling families in Chicago and Buffalo. Prohibition ended with the ratification of the 21st Amendment in 1933, but the mafia kept rolling along. These crime families had already entered the worlds of loan sharking, prostitution, and illegal gambling, just to name a few, and continued to grow throughout the country on the backs of their profits from prohibition.
You must have in your mind some things you've done that you can speak of to your credit as an American citizen. If so, what are they? Paid my tax.
There you go. He paid his taxes at least. Anyway, that is the last thing on your notes today. I just want you to have down the idea that what started to happen. Well, I would call it, yeah, organized crime or like, most famously Al Capone. And what are they all trying to sell, or what are they making money on? Alcohol. Yeah, selling alcohol illegally. Yeah, and then they started getting into this other stuff. Yeah, because the mafia doesn't go away even after prohibition. They're around for a while. Yeah, they found new ways to make money. All right, so we are going to pause there, and that is kind of a summary of the 1920s. What? Yeah, so you can definitely compare to that today. Yeah. Hold on. Go ahead. Yes. Well, you could definitely make comparison, like compare and contrast. Today, the mafia, like these guys are not really a thing today. But you could compare it to other, like I would compare it to like drug cartels or like other organizations that use violence to trade something illegally. Yeah, for sure. All right, so with that, again, that is the end of notes. If you will, just complete your summary to answer the EQ. Make sure you do your summary. And then the last thing with any extra time is either the vocab sheet or there is a web quest that looks like this on your announcement today. It's not due today. It's not going to be due until, I'm going to push it back. It's supposed to be tomorrow, but we'll make it next week. You're not doing all of it. Make sure you read the directions because you're choosing some of these to do and others you can skip. You might have started it yesterday. You might not have started it at all. And if you didn't start it at all, that's okay. Yeah. It's on the announcement, but that's okay. If you have not started this yet, do not worry about it. We will have more time to work tomorrow on it, but you can also just pull it up and at least do the number 1 before 1:45 today. You'll have time to do that. What was prohibition? I will grab it in a minute. I'm asking you. What's prohibition, y'all? Yeah, no alcohol. Awesome. Yeah, if you did this yesterday and you are done, it is, the assignment is on Canvas. You can submit it, you can turn it in. Same thing with the vocab and same thing with the notes. It's all on Canvas, Canvas. All right. I think that is all from me today. Any questions before we wrap up? Pause recording.